Okay, now let's talk about arguments in the form of modus tollens. Like modus ponens, modus tollens is guaranteed to be valid. It's going to be valid. If it's got that form, it's valid. Here's an instance of modus tollens. First premise, it's raining. If it's raining, then the ground is wet. Second premise, it's not the case that the ground is wet. Conclusion, so it's not the case that it's raining. So we look at the basic statements, same as the previous argument. It's raining is one basic statement, appears here and here. The ground is wet is the other, appears here and here. Operators, we've got if, then, just like in modus ponens. But now we've got a not here, or it's not the case that. And so if we take every instance of it's raining and replace it with P, then we get a P here and a P here. If we take every instance of the ground is wet and replace it with a Q, we get a Q here and a Q here. We leave in our operators. So the form of this argument is if P, then Q. It's not the case that Q, so it's not the case that P. This is modus tollens, it's valid. But like modus tollens, or like modus ponens, it has an evil twin. We said, as kind of a joke, that the evil twin of modus ponens is Toby. Well, the evil twin of modus tollens is, we're going to call that Chad, to give it a silly name. And so, here's an instance of Chad. If it's raining, then the ground is wet. It's not the case that it's raining, so it's not the case that the ground is wet. The form of the argument is if P, then Q. Not P, so not Q. Let me be explicit about how this form is different than modus tollens. Modus tollens has a Q here and a P here, a Q in the premise and a P in the conclusion. Chad has the P in the premise and the Q in the conclusion, so these two are switched. And to give you an idea of why this isn't valid, let's again look and see if we can tell a story where 1 and 2 are true, but 3 is false. And let's use the same sort of story we used earlier. So imagine that you want to water your lawn, but you know that it's not going to rain today. And so since it's not raining, you're like, I'm going to water the lawn because I want the ground to be wet. I want my lawn to get water. Well, in that case, premise 1 is true. Still true that even though it's not really raining, it's still true that if it's raining, then that's enough for the ground to be wet. So this is still true. Raining's still enough to make the ground wet. If it's raining, then the ground is wet. It's not the case that it's raining. Well, that's true. That's why you're using the hose. You're using the sprinkler or whatever. And then so 1 and 2 are true, but 3 is false because the ground is wet. It's just not wet because it's raining. Instead, it's wet because excuse me. It's wet because you're running the sprinkler. So the form is if P, then Q. Not P, so not Q. Both Chad and modus tollens are going to be on the exam. Make sure you know the difference. Modus tollens always valid. Chad's never valid.